The text came through at 3:47 p.m. on a Thursday. I was standing in the produce section of Trader Joe's comparing avocados when my phone buzzed. I want a divorce. All communication through my lawyer. That was it. 15 years of marriage, reduced to 21 words from my husband Oliver. No phone call, no conversation, not even the courtesy of a face-to-face discussion. My hands went numb, and I dropped the avocado I was holding. It hit the floor with a soft thud that seemed to echo through my entire body. I stood there, frozen, while people pushed their carts past me, completely unaware that my entire world had just shattered in the middle of the organic produce aisle. But here's what Oliver didn't know. What he had somehow forgotten during our years together. I wasn't the same young woman who had fallen in love with his charm and promises. I had built my career from nothing, managed our finances while he made investments that never quite panned out, and I had learned a long time ago that sometimes the person sleeping next to you is the one you should trust the least. Before we continue, quick question. What would you do in this situation? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. I read the text again. Then again. My vision blurred, and I realized tears were streaming down my face. A woman touched my shoulder. "Are you okay, honey?" she asked, her voice gentle. I nodded automatically, wiped my eyes, and somehow managed to finish my shopping in a daze. But by the time I reached my car, something had shifted inside me. The tears had stopped. My hands were steady as I gripped the steering wheel. And when I finally responded to Oliver's text, my fingers didn't shake at all. "Understood," I typed. Just that one word. I hit send and took a deep breath. Then I opened my banking app. Oliver had always been an authorized user on my credit cards. It was convenient, he'd said. We were married, after all. Why have separate accounts for everything? I'd agreed because I loved him, because I trusted him, because that's what you do when you build a life with someone. But Oliver had just ended that life with a text message. He wanted lawyers. He'd get lawyers. Every single supplementary card in his name, gone. I went through each account methodically. Chase, American Express, Discover, Capital One. Click, 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 click. Remove authorized user. Confirm. My heart was pounding, but my hands remained steady. It took maybe 15 minutes to dismantle 15 years of financial partnership. Next was the monthly discretionary allowance. We'd set it up years ago when Oliver decided to pursue his entrepreneurial ventures, a fancy way of saying he quit his stable job to chase dreams that never materialized. I'd been the primary breadwinner for the last 8 years, depositing $2,000 into his personal checking account every month so he could feel independent while I paid the actual bills. I logged into my bank's automatic transfer settings and deleted it. One click, done. The last transfer had gone through 3 days ago, so he'd have about $1,900 left by now, given his spending habits. That should last him maybe 2 weeks if he was careful, which Oliver never was. Then I changed every password we shared. Netflix, Hulu, Disney+, Spotify, Amazon Prime, the grocery delivery service, even the password for our home security system. I created a spreadsheet as I went, documenting each change with timestamps. My paralegal training from 20 years ago was kicking in. Document everything, leave a paper trail, assume every action will be scrutinized in court. Because that's where we were headed now, whether I liked it or not. The car was trickier. Oliver drove a beautiful black Audi Q7, but the lease was in my name. My name, my credit, my responsibility. He'd wanted it so badly 2 years ago, had promised he was about to close a major deal that would let him take over the payments. That deal, like so many others, had evaporated. I'd been making the $800 monthly payments ever since. I pulled up the lease agreement on my laptop and read through it carefully. The vehicle could be returned early with a penalty, or I could let him continue driving it and remain liable for any damage, tickets, or accidents. I took a photo of the odometer reading from yesterday's picture on my phone. Oliver had sent it to me asking if I thought the car needed servicing. How thoughtful of him to provide dated evidence of the vehicle's condition. I made a note. Car situation to be addressed through legal counsel as per husband's stated preference. I sat back in my car, my shopping bags forgotten in the trunk, and felt something I hadn't expected. Power. For years, I'd been the safety net, the responsible one. The person who made sure the bills were paid and the fridge was stocked and our lives ran smoothly while Oliver pursued his passions. He'd taken that for granted, taken me for granted. And now, with one cold text message, he'd cut the strings. He just hadn't realized that he'd been the puppet, not the puppeteer. My phone rang at 11:23 a.m. on Saturday morning, exactly 72 hours after Oliver's text. Unknown number, but the area code was local. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to the message. Mrs. Valerie Harrison, this is Gerald Peterson, attorney at law, representing your husband, Oliver Harrison. We need to discuss some urgent matters regarding your recent financial actions. Please return this call immediately. I deleted the voicemail and blocked the number. Oliver had set the terms. All communication through lawyers. I didn't have a lawyer yet, so there could be no communication. Simple logic. Mr. Peterson called from a different number an hour later. I answered this time, my voice calm and pleasant. Hello? Mrs. Harrison, this is Gerald Peterson. I left you a message earlier. I'm sorry, but my husband has requested that all communication go through lawyers. I don't currently have legal representation, so I'm afraid we can't speak. Mrs. Harrison, please, let's be reasonable here. You've cut off your husband's access to funds, his credit cards, even the streaming services. This is clearly bad faith. Mr. Peterson, my husband sent me a text message ending our 15-year marriage and demanding all communication go through legal counsel. I complied with his wishes. I'm not sure what could be more good faith than that. He has no way to pay for anything. His cards were declined at a restaurant last night. That sounds like something his lawyer should address through the proper legal channels. Once I retain counsel, you're welcome to contact them. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking now, but not from fear. From adrenaline. From the rush of finally standing up for myself after years of being the understanding wife, the supportive partner, the one who sacrificed her own dreams so Oliver could chase his. The phone rang again immediately. I blocked that number too. Then Oliver called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Val, what the hell are you doing? His voice was sharp, angry. No greeting, no acknowledgement of the bomb he'd dropped on our marriage 3 days ago. I'm sorry, who is this? Don't play games, Valerie. You cut off all my cards. I couldn't pay for dinner last night. Do you know how humiliating that was? Humiliating, I repeated slowly. Like finding out your husband wants a divorce via text message while you're shopping for groceries? That kind of humiliating? This is different. We can still be civil about this. You can't just... Actually, Oliver, I can. You requested all communication go through lawyers. That ended the status quo of our financial arrangement. Any questions about support can be addressed through the legal process you initiated. You're being vindictive. I'm being compliant. Your lawyer has my number. Once I have legal representation, I'm sure our counsels can work out temporary support arrangements through the proper channels. I'm staying at Henry's. I don't even have money for gas. Then I guess Henry is a good friend. I paused. Or you could use some of that money from the secret savings account you think I don't know about. The silence on the other end told me everything I needed to know. I don't know what you're talking about, he finally said, but his voice had lost its angry edge. I'm sure it will all come out in discovery. Have your lawyer call my lawyer. Once I have one. I ended the call and blocked his number too. My best friend Nadine called 10 minutes later. Girl, Oliver's sister just called me asking what's wrong with you. She said you're refusing to talk to him and you cut off all his money. What's going on?" I told her everything. By the time I finished, Nadine was quiet for a long moment. Then, "So what you're telling me is that this man texted you a divorce demand, didn't even have the decency to say it to your face, and now he's mad that you took him at his word?" "Essentially, yes." "And he's got his sister calling around making you look like the bad guy?" "Seems like it." "Oh, honey, you need Tasha Brooks. She's a divorce attorney who goes for blood. Let me text you her number. And Val?" Nadine's voice softened. "I'm proud of you. It's about time you stopped being Oliver's safety net." Monday morning, my work email contained an anonymous complaint to HR about my unstable emotional state and concerning behavior that was affecting my work performance. The complaint suggested I might need immediate psychiatric evaluation and possibly a leave of absence. It was carefully worded, containing just enough concern trolling to seem legitimate while clearly trying to damage my professional reputation. I forwarded it to my manager with a brief note explaining that I was going through a divorce and believed this might be a harassment attempt from my soon-to-be ex-husband's camp. My manager, thankfully, saw right through it and assured me HR would investigate the source. Tasha Brooks called me back Tuesday afternoon. Her voice was direct, no nonsense. Nadine filled me in on the basics: text message divorce, financial cutoff, lawyer already playing games. I'm going to need a $5,000 retainer to start. Done. When can we meet? How about tomorrow at 9? And Valerie? Bring every financial document you have. Bank statements, credit card records, tax returns, property deeds. Everything. We're going to need it. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, our bed, the one Oliver and I had shared for 15 years, and stared at the ceiling. Part of me kept expecting him to come home, to tell me this was all a mistake, to apologize and beg for forgiveness. But the rational part of me, the part that had been growing stronger over the past few days, knew better. This wasn't a mistake. This was Oliver showing me exactly who he was. A man who would end a marriage by text and then throw a tantrum when his wife didn't continue funding his lifestyle. I got up and went to Oliver's home office, the room he'd claimed for all his various business ventures over the years. I started going through his desk drawers, not sure what I was looking for, but knowing I needed to look. In the bottom drawer, underneath a stack of old business proposals and motivational books he'd never read, I found a folder. Inside were bank statements for an account I'd never seen before. An account with $63,000 in it. An account that had been receiving regular deposits of $500 for the past 3 years. $500. Exactly 1/4 of his monthly allowance. My husband had been skimming off the money I gave him and hiding it in a secret account. While I paid all our bills, all our expenses, everything we needed to survive, Oliver had been building his own private nest egg. Preparing for this, maybe. Or just keeping it as his escape fund, his freedom fund, his just-in-case-I-want-to-leave-her fund. I photographed every page, documented every deposit, and then I found the second folder. This one contained stock certificates, inherited stocks from his father, who died 4 years ago. Stocks that Oliver had told me were worthless and not worth transferring. Stocks that were currently valued at over $200,000. My hands started shaking again, but this time it wasn't adrenaline. It was rage. Pure, cold rage. Oliver had hidden assets while I supported him. While I paid for his car, his lifestyle, his freedom to pursue his dreams. He'd been planning this, or at the very least he'd been protecting himself while leaving me vulnerable. I took photos of everything. Then I carefully put it all back exactly as I'd found it. Let him think his secrets were still safe. I was just closing the drawer when I heard the front door open. My blood went cold. Oliver had a key. Of course he did. This was still legally his house, too. I heard his footsteps coming down the hall. The office door swung open. Oliver stood there, and he wasn't alone. Behind him was a woman I'd never seen before, blonde, younger, wearing an engagement ring that caught the light. And behind them both, Smirking in a way that made my stomach turn was Oliver's business partner, Marcus, the one who'd been helping him with his latest guaranteed success venture. "We need to talk," Oliver said. "Get out of my house." The words came out steady, cold. I stood up from Oliver's desk chair, putting the furniture between us and them. Oliver stepped forward, his face flushed. "It's my house too, Valerie. Legally, I have every right to be here." "With your girlfriend? And your business partner? At 11 o'clock at night?" I looked at the blonde woman, who had the decency to look uncomfortable. "Does she know you were married when you started dating her, or did you tell her we were already separated?" "Her name is Amber," Oliver said, like that explained anything. "And we met after I decided to leave you." "After you decided," I repeated. "So you decided weeks ago, maybe months ago. But you texted me last Thursday. How considerate of you to let me know eventually." Marcus moved into the room, his expensive shoes clicking on the hardwood floor. He was a big man, always impeccably dressed, always smiling like he knew something you didn't. "Valerie, let's all calm down and be adults about this. Oliver made a mistake coming here tonight. We were just having drinks, celebrating some good news, and he thought he should grab a few more of his things. At 11 p.m., without calling first, breaking the terms he said about all communication going through lawyers." I crossed my arms. "And what good news would that be, Marcus? Another one of your guaranteed investment opportunities that somehow never makes any money?" Marcus's smile didn't waver. "Actually, we just closed a major deal. A real estate development project that's going to make us both very wealthy. 7 figures, Valerie. The kind of money that makes arguments about credit cards seem pretty petty." Something in his tone made my skin crawl. "What real estate development?" "That's confidential business information," Marcus said smoothly. "But Oliver will be well positioned to take care of himself financially, so all this nonsense about cutting off his cards and his allowance, it's just going to make you look vindictive when we get to court. The scorned wife trying to punish her husband for moving on." I looked at Oliver, really looked at him. He couldn't meet my eyes, his jaw was tight, and he was sweating despite the cool temperature in the house. "What did you do, Oliver?" "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do. What did you promise Marcus? What did you sign?" Amber touched Oliver's arm. "Baby, maybe we should just go. We can come back another time with the lawyer." "Smart girl," I said to her. "You should run while you still can. Ask yourself why a man who claims to have a 7-figure deal coming needs his ex-wife to keep funding his credit cards." "That money is tied up in the development," Marcus interjected. "It takes time for these things to close. Oliver's just in a temporary cash flow situation." "Right. Like he's been in a temporary cash flow situation for the past 8 years. I moved toward the door, forcing them to step back. "Get out, all of you. If Oliver wants his things, his lawyer can coordinate with mine to schedule a time." "Valerie, please," Oliver started. "Get out." I pulled out my phone. "Or I call the police and report that my estranged husband broke into my home with 2 strangers at 11 p.m. while I was alone." They left. Marcus went first, still smiling. Amber scurried after him. Oliver paused at the door, looked like he wanted to say something, then shook his head and walked out. I locked the door behind them, engaged the deadbolt, and set the security alarm. Then I went back to Oliver's office and photographed every single document I'd found. It took me until 2 a.m, but I documented everything. The next morning at 8:47 a.m., I was in the parking lot of Tasha Brooks's law office when my phone rang. My bank's fraud department. "Ms. Harrison, we're calling about unusual activity on joint account ending in 4792. There was an ATM withdrawal of $4,000 at 6:15 this morning, and an attempt to withdraw the remaining balance of $11,000 that we flagged for verification." The joint checking account. The one we'd opened when we first got married and barely used anymore. I'd forgotten about it because we'd moved everything to separate accounts years ago, keeping this one open with minimal funds just for emergencies. I didn't authorize any withdrawals. The withdrawal was made using a valid ATM card and PIN, but the amount and timing triggered our fraud protocols. Can you verify if you made this withdrawal? No, I did not. My husband and I are divorcing. He must have used his old ATM card. I pulled up my banking app. Oliver had taken everything except what the daily withdrawal limit prevented. Please freeze the account immediately and reverse the withdrawal if possible. I'm sorry, Ms. Harrison, but if he's an authorized user on the account with a valid card and PIN, we can't reverse the transaction. We can freeze the account to prevent further withdrawals, but the money that's already been taken is considered a legitimate withdrawal by an account holder. So Oliver had stolen, legally withdrawn, $4,000 of what was technically his money too, and tried to take everything else. Probably on Marcus's advice. Probably in the middle of the night after leaving my house, angry and desperate, and listening to whatever poison Marcus was whispering in his ear. Tasha Brooks was exactly what I needed. She was in her mid-50s, silver hair cut short, wearing a charcoal suit that meant business. Her office walls were covered with framed courtroom victories and professional accolades. She listened to everything without interrupting, took notes on a yellow legal pad, and only spoke when I finished. Okay, here's what we're dealing with, she said, her voice matter of fact. Your husband initiated divorce via text, which shows poor judgment and will not look good to a judge. You responded by cutting off financial support you were voluntarily providing, which is legally your right since he demanded formal proceedings. He's now hired Gerald Peterson, who is known for aggressive tactics and dragging cases out to bleed the other side dry in legal fees. The secret accounts and hidden stocks are exactly what we need. Financial misconduct during marriage is something judges hate. And this joint account situation this morning, that's him showing his true colors. What about Marcus? Oliver's business partner. He was at my house last night with Oliver and some woman named Amber. He mentioned a real estate deal, 7 figures. He seemed too involved, too controlling. Tasha's eyes narrowed. Marcus who? Full name. Marcus Wendell. They've been business partners for about 5 years. She wrote the name down, underlined it twice. I'm going to have my investigator look into Mr. Wendell. Sometimes these divorces aren't really about the marriage at all. Sometimes there are other interests at play. She looked up at me. Valerie, I need to ask you something important. Your house, the one you live in, whose name is on the title? Both of ours. We bought it together 12 years ago. And its worth? We had it appraised last year for insurance purposes. $570,000. We owe about $200,000 on the mortgage. Tasha made more notes. So roughly $370,000 in equity, half of which is yours. That's $185,000. Now, is there any scenario in which you might have discussed signing the house over to Oliver, maybe for estate planning or tax purposes, or to protect it from creditors? My blood went cold. Marcus asked Oliver about that once, maybe 2 years ago. He said it would be smart to have the house in one name for liability protection, in case one of Oliver's business ventures got sued. I refused. I said absolutely not. Did Oliver bring it up again? Not that I remember, but I thought back to all the documents Oliver had asked me to sign over the years. Papers for his business ventures, tax documents, refinancing paperwork. Oh God, could he have hidden it in other paperwork? That's what we need to find out. I need you to pull your property records from the county recorder's office today, right now, if possible. If there's been any change to the title, it will show up there. She stood up. I'm going to file an emergency motion for temporary orders today, freezing all assets, preventing either of you from selling property or draining accounts, and requesting a temporary support hearing. But Valerie, I need you to prepare yourself. If Oliver did somehow get you to sign over the house, this gets much more complicated. I went straight from Tasha's office to the county recorder. The clerk pulled up my property on her computer, and my worst fear materialized on the screen in front of me. So this property was quitclaimed from joint tenancy to sole ownership by Oliver Harrison on, let's see, March 15th, 2 years ago. That's not possible. I never signed a quitclaim deed. The clerk turned her monitor so I could see. There was my signature, or something that looked like my signature, on a document I'd never seen before, giving up my rights to my own house. I need copies of everything: the original deed, the quitclaim, all the filing documents. That'll be $50 for the full property history. I paid it and took the documents to a coffee shop, my hands shaking so hard I could barely hold the papers. I stared at my signature. It looked right. The loops and curves, the way I crossed my T's. But I didn't remember signing this. I would never have signed this. Unless... I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through my photos from 2 years ago. March 2023. There. Oliver had asked me to sign some refinancing documents that month. I'd been in the hospital recovering from emergency gallbladder surgery, heavily medicated, barely conscious. He'd brought papers to my bedside. "Just refinancing stuff," he'd said. "Better interest rate. Just need your signature." I'd signed whatever he put in front of me because I was his wife. Because I trusted him. Because the morphine made everything fuzzy and far away. He'd forged it. Or he'd slipped the quitclaim deed into the stack of refinancing papers while I was too drugged to read what I was signing. Either way, my house, the house I'd paid the mortgage on for 12 years, the house I'd maintained and improved and loved, wasn't legally mine anymore. I called Tasha. He took the house, 2 years ago when I was in the hospital. I signed something, but I don't think I knew what it was. "Come back to my office, right now. And Valerie, don't go home. If that house is legally his, he could have the locks changed at any moment." She was right. When I drove past my house an hour later, there was a locksmith's van in the driveway. Oliver's Audi was parked on the street. I pulled over and called Tasha again. "They're changing the locks right now." "Do not confront them. Do not go inside. I'm filing an emergency motion this afternoon, but until we get in front of a judge, that house is legally his. If you go in there, he can have you arrested for trespassing." "But all my things..." "We'll get them back, I promise. But right now, you need to find somewhere else to stay. Do you have family nearby? Friends?" I ended up at Nadine's house, sitting on her couch at 3 p.m. on a Wednesday, watching her 2 kids play video games while I tried to process how I'd lost my home in a single day. Nadine brought me tea and sat next to me, her arm around my shoulders. "We'll figure this out," she said. "You've got a good lawyer. You've got evidence he tricked you. You're going to fight this and win." "What if I don't? What if the signature holds up in court? What if..." "Then you rebuild. You're Valerie Harrison. You've built everything you have from nothing once. You can do it again." She squeezed my shoulder. "But I don't think it's going to come to that. That man got greedy, and greedy people make mistakes." My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I opened it and felt my blood turn to ice. It was a photo of Oliver's office, the room where I'd been last night. The desk drawer was open. The folders with the bank statements and stock certificates were clearly visible. And there was a message. "Looking for something? By the way, those documents are gone now. No proof they ever existed. You should have taken them when you had the chance. M. Marcus." Marcus had known I'd found the evidence. Either Oliver told him, or they had cameras in the house I didn't know about. And now the proof of Oliver's hidden assets was gone. Just gone. I showed Nadine the text. "They're destroying evidence. What do I do?" "You tell Tasha, and you tell her about the photos you took." "What photos?" Then I remembered. Last night, 2 a.m., documenting everything with my phone. I grabbed my phone and opened my photos. They were all there. Every bank statement, every stock certificate, every deposit record, $63,000 in secret savings. $200,000 in inherited stocks. All documented, all time-stamped from last night. I started laughing. I couldn't help it. Marcus thought he was so clever, removing the physical evidence. But he'd forgotten about the digital age. He'd forgotten that I'd been a paralegal before I moved into corporate HR. He'd forgotten that I knew to document everything. "What's so funny?" Nadine asked. "They think they won. They think they destroyed the evidence." I held up my phone. "But I photographed all of it, every page, every statement, every stock certificate. It's all right here." I forwarded everything to Tasha immediately. She called back within 5 minutes. "Valerie, this is exactly what we need, but I have to tell you something else. My investigator just found something interesting about Marcus Wendell. He's been planning a major commercial development on the east side of town. Mixed-use residential and retail. City Council approved the zoning last month, and guess what property is right in the middle of the planned development zone? My house, your house, which is now Oliver's house. Which means Marcus has been positioning Oliver to sell it to him, probably for below market value as part of their partnership. The 7-figure deal he mentioned? That's the development deal. And Oliver's piece of it is your house, the house Marcus helped him steal from you." Everything clicked into place. The business partnership. The constant financial problems that kept Oliver dependent on me. The girlfriend who appeared right when Oliver needed emotional support to leave. The quitclaim deed signed while I was vulnerable. Marcus hadn't just been Oliver's business partner. He'd been orchestrating this whole thing, positioning Oliver to betray me so Marcus could get the property he needed for his development. "Can we prove it?" I asked. "We're going to try. Emergency hearing is tomorrow morning at 9. Judge Sylvia Chen. She's fair but tough. She doesn't like games, and she really doesn't like men who try to cheat their wives out of assets." Tasha paused. "But Valerie, I need you to understand something. Even if we win tomorrow, this is just the beginning. Marcus has resources. He's going to fight dirty. This could get a lot worse before it gets better." "How much worse can it get? I've lost my home, my marriage is over, my husband's been lying to me for years." "Well," Tasha said carefully, "my investigator also found out that Marcus Wendell has connections to some very influential people, including Judge Peterson." "Gerald Peterson? Oliver's lawyer?" "No, Judge Franklin Peterson, Gerald Peterson's father, who sits on the family court bench in this county, and who Marcus plays golf with every Sunday." I felt the ground drop out from under me. "So if we get the wrong judge, we get a fair trial that's not actually fair at all, which is why tomorrow's emergency hearing is crucial. Judge Chen is our best shot. After tomorrow, there's no guarantee who will draw for the actual divorce proceedings." That night, lying in Nadine's guest room, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Oliver, about the man I'd married 15 years ago. Had he always been capable of this? Or had Marcus slowly corrupted him, year by year, until Oliver became someone who could drug his wife and steal her house? Did it even matter? My phone buzzed at 2:47 a.m. Another unknown number. I almost didn't look, but something made me check. It was a photo. Oliver and Amber in what looked like a hotel room. She was crying. He was yelling, his face red and angry, his hand raised. The caption read, "Thought you should know who you're really fighting for. He's not the victim here. He's never been the victim. A friend." I stared at the image, studied Oliver's face, twisted with rage, thought about how he'd never raised his hand to me, never shown me this side of himself. But maybe that was because I'd always given him what he wanted, always been the safety net, always said yes. What happened when someone finally said no to Oliver? What happened when Amber discovered she'd traded a wife for a position as his next victim? I saved the photo. I'd show it to Tasha in the morning. But as I finally drifted off to sleep, one thought kept circling through my mind. Marcus had made a mistake. He'd underestimated me. He'd thought I was just the wife, just the walking ATM machine, just the woman who'd sign whatever papers were put in front of her. He was about to find out how wrong he was. The morning of the emergency hearing, I woke up at 5 a.m. in Nadine's guest room, staring at the ceiling, trying to remember what hope felt like. I'd lost my house. My husband had betrayed me with precision and planning. A man I'd never wronged was orchestrating my destruction for a real estate deal. And I was about to walk into a courtroom where the outcome could determine whether I ended up with anything at all or lost everything I'd spent 15 years building. Nadine knocked softly and came in with coffee. "You ready for this?" "I don't think I have a choice." "You always have a choice, Val. You could walk away, let Oliver have everything, start over somewhere new." She sat on the edge of the bed. "But that's not who you are. You're a fighter. You just forgot for a while." I met Tasha outside the courthouse at 8:30. She was carrying 2 briefcases and wore her courtroom armor, a navy suit, pearl earrings, and an expression that said she was ready for war. "Okay, here's what's going to happen. Gerald Peterson is going to argue that you're being vindictive, that you cut Oliver off without warning, that you're trying to impoverish him out of spite. He's going to paint you as the angry wife and Oliver as the victim. We're going to counter with evidence of financial misconduct, hidden assets, and the fraudulent quitclaim deed. Judge Chen doesn't tolerate nonsense, so stay calm, answer questions directly, and let me handle Peterson." "What about Marcus?" "He'll probably be in the courtroom. He can't testify at this hearing since he's not party to the divorce, but he'll be watching. Let him watch. Let him see what happens when he underestimates someone." The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, an American flag in the corner. Judge Sylvia Chen sat behind the bench, a woman in her early 60s with steel gray hair and reading glasses perched on her nose. She looked at both sides with an expression that suggested she'd already heard every lie and excuse imaginable. Gerald Peterson stood as we entered. He was tall, silver-haired, expensive suit, the kind of lawyer who probably charged $800 an hour. Oliver sat next to him, wearing a suit I'd bought him 2 years ago for a job interview he never went to. He wouldn't look at me. Marcus sat in the gallery behind them, that same knowing smile on his face. Amber wasn't with him. "All right," Judge Chen said, consulting her notes. "Emergency motion for temporary orders in the matter of Harrison versus Harrison. Mr. Peterson, you have the floor." Peterson stood, all courtroom theatrics and calculated outrage. "Your Honor, my client Oliver Harrison is a victim of financial abuse by his vindictive soon-to-be ex-wife. Without warning, without discussion, Mrs. Harrison cut off all of my client's access to funds. She canceled his credit cards, eliminated his monthly support, and has essentially left him destitute. My client is staying on a friend's couch because he cannot afford alternative housing. He cannot pay for food, for transportation, for basic necessities. Meanwhile, Mrs. Mahon Harrison enjoys the full benefit of her substantial income while punishing my client for having the audacity to seek a divorce." Judge Chen looked at me over her glasses. "Mrs. Harrison, did you cut off your husband's credit cards and monthly allowance?" Tasha stood. "Your Honor, if I may address that question?" "I'd like to hear from Mrs. Harrison directly." I stood, my legs shaky but my voice steady. "Yes, Your Honor, I did. After my husband sent me a text message stating he wanted a divorce and that all communication should go through his lawyer. I understood that to mean our informal financial arrangements were terminated and that any future support would be determined through legal proceedings. I didn't think it was appropriate to continue funding his lifestyle while we were in active divorce litigation." "A text message?" Judge Chen looked at Peterson. "Your client initiated divorce proceedings via text message?" Peterson shifted. "The method of communication is irrelevant, Your Honor. What matters is—" "I'll decide what's relevant, Mr. Peterson. Do you have a copy of this text message?" Tasha handed up her phone, the text exchange already pulled up. Judge Chen read it, her expression hardening. I want a divorce. All communication through my lawyer. That's it? No prior discussion? No separation agreement in place? Your Honor, my client was clearly emotional. Your client set the terms, Mr. Peterson. He demanded all communication go through lawyers, thereby ending the informal spousal support arrangement. Mrs. Bay, Harrison complied. She looked at me. However, Mrs. Harrison, regardless of your husband's poor communication skills, you do have a spousal support obligation during divorce proceedings. What is your current income? I make approximately $92,000 annually, Your Honor. I'm an HR manager at a technology company. And your husband's income? He's been unemployed for approximately 8 years. He describes himself as an entrepreneur, but his ventures have not generated income during our marriage. I've been the sole breadwinner. Peterson jumped in. Your Honor, my client has been supporting Mrs. Harrison in other ways, managing the household, providing emotional support. Does your client do the cooking, cleaning, and household management? Judge Chen asked me. No, Your Honor. We hired a cleaning service twice a month, which I paid for. I did most of the cooking. Oliver primarily worked on his business ventures. Judge Chen made a note. What business ventures? Tasha stood again. Your Honor, if I may, we have evidence that Mr. Harrison's business ventures have been largely unsuccessful. But more importantly, we have evidence of significant financial misconduct. She handed up the photographs of the bank statements and stock certificates. These documents show that Mr. Harrison maintained a secret savings account with over $63,000. Money that came from the monthly allowance Mrs. Harrison provided. He also has inherited stock holdings worth approximately $200,000 that he claimed were worthless. Peterson was on his feet. Your Honor, those documents were obtained illegally. Mrs. Harrison broke into my client's private office. It's the marital residence, Tasha countered. Mrs. Harrison had every right to access any room in her own home. Except it's not her home, Peterson's voice rose. The property was legally transferred to my client 2 years ago via quitclaim deed. Mrs. Harrison has no legal right to that property. Judge Chen held up her hand. Mr. Peterson, are you telling me that the marital home, purchased during the marriage, was transferred to your client's sole ownership? When did this occur? March 2023, Your Honor. Mrs. Harrison signed a quitclaim deed transferring her interest in the property. Your Honor, Tasha said, we believe that quitclaim deed was obtained through fraud. Mrs. Harrison was recovering from emergency surgery at the time, heavily medicated, and was asked to sign what she believed were refinancing documents. She had no idea she was signing away her rights to her home. Judge Chen studied the quitclaim deed Tasha provided. Mrs. Harrison, do you remember signing this document? I remember being in the hospital, Your Honor. I remember Oliver bringing me papers to sign. He said they were refinancing documents. I was on morphine. I could barely stay awake. I signed whatever he put in front of me because he was my husband and I trusted him. Do you have any evidence of this hospital stay? Yes, Your Honor. Medical records showing I was admitted for emergency gallbladder surgery on March 14, 2023, and discharged on March 16th. The quitclaim deed is dated March 15th. Peterson scoffed. Your Honor, this is convenient storytelling. Mrs. Harrison signed a legal document. The fact that she regrets it now doesn't invalidate her signature. What I find interesting, Judge Chen said slowly, is the timing. Why would a married couple suddenly need to transfer property from joint ownership to sole ownership? What was the stated purpose? Peterson hesitated. Asset protection for Mr. Harrison's business ventures. And where are those business ventures now? What income have they generated? Silence. Mr. Peterson, I'm going to be very direct with you. Your client texted his wife a divorce demand, hid assets, drained a joint bank account, and somehow convinced his medicated wife to sign away her home. And now he's asking this court to award him spousal support? Judge Chen removed her glasses. Here's my temporary order. Mrs. Harrison will pay Mr. Harrison temporary spousal support of $800 per month. Your Honor, Peterson protested, I'm not finished. Mrs. Harrison will pay $800 per month until we can conduct full financial discovery. The marital home will remain in Mr. Harrison's name for now, but he is prohibited from selling, refinancing, or otherwise encumbering the property pending the outcome of the fraud investigation I'm ordering. Both parties are prohibited from dissipating marital assets. We'll reconvene in 60 days for a full hearing on the quitclaim deed. If I find it was obtained fraudulently, Mr. Harrison, you'll be lucky if you walk away with anything at all. She banged her gavel. We're adjourned. I walked out of the courtroom in a daze. $800 a month, barely enough for Oliver to survive on, a fraction of what he'd been getting. The house was frozen. The hidden assets were exposed. It felt like a victory. Tasha put her hand on my arm. Good first step, but this isn't over. Peterson will appeal, Marcus will regroup, and they'll come at us harder in the main hearing. She was right. 2 weeks later, the real attacks began. Someone posted my personal information online, my address, my phone number, my employer's contact information. My work email was flooded with hundreds of messages calling me a gold digger, a thief, a woman who was trying to destroy an innocent man. My company's Yelp page was bombarded with one-star reviews mentioning me by name. My social media accounts were hacked. Then the letters started arriving at my office. Anonymous, but clearly coordinated. All saying the same thing: drop the fraud investigation or face consequences. I took everything to Tasha. She contacted the police, filed a restraining order request, and hired a cybersecurity expert. But the damage was done. My professional reputation was under attack. My privacy was violated. I was exhausted, barely sleeping, jumping at every sound. This is Marcus, Tasha said. This is what he does when legal methods don't work. He tries to break you psychologically. It's working. No, it's not. Because tomorrow, we're going to church. I looked at her like she was crazy. What? You told me you used to attend Bethel AME, right? Before you got too busy with work and Oliver's drama? Well, Pastor Williams is still there, and I happen to know he doesn't take kindly to men who abuse women, financially, emotionally, or otherwise. Sunday morning, I walked into Bethel AM Church for the first time in 3 years. The choir was singing Stand by Donnie McClurkin, and the sound washed over me like a wave. I'd forgotten this. The power of community, of voices raised together, of people who showed up for each other. Pastor Williams spotted me immediately. After the service, he called me to his office, a small room filled with books and photos of church events over the years. He was in his 70s now, silver-haired but still sharp-eyed and strong. Sister Valerie, he said, hugging me tight. Tasha told me what you're going through, and I want you to know something. You are not alone. This church is your family. We don't abandon family. Over the next week, the church community mobilized. The cyber attacks stopped because the church's IT ministry, run by a former NSA analyst named Brother Kenneth, traced the attacks and reported them to the FBI. The harassment campaign ended because church members flooded my company's review pages with real, positive reviews and contacted management to explain what was happening. When I needed a place to stay permanently, Sister Dorothy offered me her mother-in-law suite, refusing to take rent. You save your money for them lawyers, she said. Family takes care of family. The main hearing came 60 days later. This time the courtroom was packed. Nadine was there. Pastor Williams and a dozen church members filled the gallery, and sitting in the back, his smile finally gone, was Marcus Wendell. Judge Chen had clearly done her homework. I've reviewed the medical records, the financial documents, and the timeline of events. Mr. Peterson, your client obtained a quitclaim deed from his wife while she was hospitalized and medicated for the stated purpose of protecting assets from his business ventures that have produced no income. Within 24 months of obtaining this deed, he initiated divorce proceedings via text message. and we've now discovered that the property in question sits in the middle of a planned commercial development zone. She looked directly at Oliver. Mr. Harrison, did your business partner Marcus Wendell ever discuss the development plans for your neighborhood? Oliver's face went pale. Your Honor, I don't think... It's a yes or no question. Yes. He mentioned it. And did he suggest you obtain sole ownership of the property? Peterson tried to object, but Judge Chen silenced him with a look. He said it would be easier to negotiate the sale if the property was in one name. So you defrauded your wife out of her home to facilitate a real estate deal with your business partner. Judge Chen's voice was ice. Here's my ruling. The quitclaim deed is voided due to fraud. The property returns to joint ownership. Mr. Harrison, you will vacate the premises within 30 days. The home will be sold and proceeds divided equally. As for the division of assets, the secret savings account of $63,000 is awarded entirely to Mrs. Harrison as compensation for fraud. The inherited stocks will be divided 50-50, as will all other marital assets. And Mr. Harrison, you'll receive spousal support of exactly $0. You committed fraud to steal from your wife. You're lucky I'm not holding you in contempt. Oliver's face crumbled. Peterson was already packing his briefcase, clearly wanting to get out before his client's misconduct reflected worse on him. And Marcus Wendell stood up and walked out of the courtroom without looking back. Outside, Tasha turned to me. The house sale will take a few months, but you're going to be okay. Better than okay. She was right. 6 months later, I stood in front of my new townhouse, smaller than the house I'd shared with Oliver, but mine. Truly mine. The proceeds from the house sale, plus my share of the stocks and the hidden savings account, had given me a fresh start. I'd been promoted at work after my manager saw how professionally I'd handled the harassment campaign, and I was dating again, slowly, carefully, with new boundaries and better judgment. Oliver, I heard through Nadine's network, was living in a small apartment across town, working 2 part-time jobs to make ends meet. His relationship with Amber had imploded within weeks. Turned out she didn't like being yelled at any more than I would have. Marcus's development deal had collapsed when the city council discovered the fraud involving the property acquisition and revoked the zoning approval. He was facing civil lawsuits from his investors. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt free. One Sunday after church, Pastor Williams pulled me aside. You know what I'm proudest of, Sister Valerie? You didn't let them make you bitter. You fought for what was right, but you didn't let anger consume you. I had moments, I admitted. We all do. But you chose justice over revenge. That takes strength. As I drove home that afternoon, I thought about the text message that had started everything. I want a divorce, all communication through my lawyer. Oliver had meant it as a power move, a way to control the narrative and protect himself. Instead, he'd handed me the tools I needed to uncover the truth. He'd wanted lawyers? He'd gotten them. He'd wanted legal proceedings? He'd gotten those too. And in demanding formal process, he'd triggered the very discovery and scrutiny that exposed everything he'd tried to hide. Sometimes the best revenge is simply letting someone face the consequences of their own choices. Oliver had chosen to betray me, to lie to me, to steal from me. And in the end, those choices had cost him everything he'd tried to gain. As for me, I was 62 years old, divorced, starting over. But I was also free, honest, and surrounded by people who actually loved me. I'd learned that sometimes losing everything means you finally have room to build something real, and that was worth more than any house, any marriage, or any amount of money could ever be. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.